Hi, my name is Amanda, and I'd like to tell you the story of what happened with my daughter 5 years ago. It actually starts with my husband falling off of a ladder. I was 8.5 months pregnant, and the ladder slipped, and he fell and broke 4 ribs and lacerated his liver. And so, long story short, he went to the hospital and he was able to recover from that just before it was time for me to have my daughter in a different hospital. um anyway, it was a long labor, 36 hours, and then emergency C-section, and then she was here, and she was fine for like 24 hours. But something happened, and we still don't exactly know what. But the next day, her pediatric doctor was visiting, and she said, "Hey, has your daughter ever seized like that before?" She happened to walk in the exact moment that my daughter started having a seizure. And I was like, no, she has not done this, because I've never seen a baby have seizures before. Uh, and so they whisked her off to the NICU, and it was good that we had been there for the emergency C-section, because they require a 40-hour stay instead of 24, just to make sure everything's okay. And it wasn't. So the next day, after they've been watching her in the NICU all night, a lot of doctors came into the room where I was still recovering from the C-section, still laying down. And uh, a doctor or nurse, I can't remember, solemnly walks up to me, and he holds my hand, and he just looks at me. And it felt so somber. It felt like death. And you just know the news is going to be bad. And they said, "Your daughter had a massive stroke. Um, she lost a whole ton of brain mass in the right side of her brain. So her left limbs, her left arm, and her left leg, she couldn't move. And then she lost a little bit of function in the left side of her brain near the speech and language center. And so they didn't know if she would be able to walk, and they didn't know if she would be able to talk. And, they asked, "Do you have any questions?" And they're just looking at us like zombies. And all I wanted them to do was just get out of the room. I was able to hold it together until they left. All the doctors and nurses filed out, and they were sad to deliver the news. And I kind of felt bad for them in that moment. Like, oh, it must feel bad to have to give people news like that. But when they left, and it was just me and my husband alone in the room, we held each other and we just wept. Because it was like, it just felt like a truck hit us. It felt like time had stopped. Anyway, so Rory's in the NICU, and I basically move in there once I'm healed up enough from the C-section. Sorry. I'm kind of living in there, but not really getting any sleep, because the doctors come in to check her like every 3 hours, I want to say. So I'm just on this never-ending loop. And to me, it's felt like it's only been 2 days, but I guess it had been 8 days. And then I had a massive hemorrhage, and I lost a whole ton of blood. And I was in the bathroom and I was like, wow, that's a lot of blood. I've seen Grey's Anatomy. This is not good. I have like, I don't know, 2 to 5 minutes to tell someone before I pass out. So my mom happened to be visiting at the moment, and I tell her, Mom, I lost all this blood. Anyway, they put me in a wheelchair and they whisk me off, and I'm blacking out. Like, I just see from the edges of my vision, like everything is going black, and I'm like, wow, I guess I'm dying. Well, into thy hands I commit my spirit, just like I was laughing about it. Like, for some reason it was just the funniest thing. Like, okay, I guess I'm dying. Wow, a lot of horrible stuff happened. um and then I kind of come back to consciousness, and I see this nurse, and she's working with a whole bunch of doctors all around. They're like pumping the blood out of my uterus. I guess something had gone septic in there, or maybe they hadn't gotten everything out during the C-section. And when I came back to, I was just like, all of that laughing feeling was gone, and I just felt extremely depressed. And the lady there, the nurse, she asked how I was feeling, and I said, I want to die. And I was like, yeah. The whole time I was at that hospital, I don't know, they had me on a lot of different drugs for the pain. One of them was oxycodone, I think. And I just remember going in between feeling nothing and feeling like I just wanted to die. Um, and also in the NICU, I lost the ability to sing. It was the weirdest thing. Like, every time, and it made me upset too, because I wanted to sing to my daughter to reassure her in the NICU. But I don't know why that's the saddest part of the story. It's really not. Uh, but I couldn't sing when we were in the NICU. Anyway, this was all happening during the summer of 2017. And so everything was on fire. And so when my mom came to the hospital, when I was feeling better after all that, but Rory was still in the NICU, to take me out to get a breath of fresh air, everything was smoky. Everything was on fire, and it just felt like the world was ending. But if Rory hadn't had the stroke, we wouldn't have been in the hospital when I had the hemorrhage. So I really feel like God was looking down at this timeline that the enemy had for my life and all the bad things that were going to happen. And he organized them in such a way that we were all okay. Because if it hadn't been Daniel falling down that ladder, it would have been me. And Rory might have gotten squished, you know? She would have been gone. So Daniel falling on the ladder saved Rory's life. And when I was in the hospital and we had that emergency C-section, that saved Rory because we were in the hospital for 40 hours instead of 24. So we were there just that little bit of extra time. And then God also worked it out to where the pediatrician came in at exactly the right second. She had another patient across the hall. So it was down to the minute. Like, she came in to visit us. She said, "Hi, I have a patient across the hall. Do you mind if I come back in 5 minutes?" And I said, "Sure." And she went to go visit the other patient, another baby who had just been born. And then she came back to our room, and at that moment, Rory started seizing. So the emergency C-section saved Rory. We were in the hospital to get her the help she needed right away, when she had that stroke, because some kids have strokes and pass away and they call it SIDS. Um, or some kids, they'll have a stroke but nobody knows, and it doesn't show up for years until they notice cognitive differences in kids and they're like, like maybe we should get our kid checked out. And that wasn't the case with us. Like, we knew right away Rory was able to get help. Um, and then Rory having the stroke and staying in the NICU for 3 weeks ended up saving my life, because I could have lost brain function or maybe even died with that massive hemorrhage that I had. So because we were in the hospital, like, that was 8 days after she had her stroke, like, but I was right where I needed to be. And that's just the way God worked it out. And now Rory has had a ton of speech therapy and physical therapy and occupational therapy. We've been blessed to have so many people working with her. And if you're one of those people, thank you so much. If you're one of those doctors or nurses, thank you so much. You've done everything, means everything to us. She's doing so much better now. She's doing word approximations. She can say about 40 words, which is a miracle. Neuroplasticity is a miracle. And she can walk, she can even run. And what I said then, way back when I was suicidal, I said, "The Lord gives and the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." Because even back then, I accepted that the bad things that happen in our lives, they don't mean that God doesn't love us. There are bad things in the world, but they don't actually come from God. But He can use them. Anyway, but I'm not the person who, if you're going through something horrible, like someone in your life just had a stroke, I'm not going to come along and say, well, God uses everything, He has a purpose. I'm not going to be that person, because I've been there. You don't want to hear that when you're in it. You just want someone to hand you food and go away and let you just watch Netflix and forget about what's happening. um, anyway, that is what God did in our daughter's life and in our lives.